Okay, hi everybody. So today we are going to talk about chapter 3. It's about expressions. So we'll be talking about few things. First one, we're gonna have like a very quick overview or reminder what we covered so far, like the variables, how to prompt the user to enter information, use CIN. We're gonna be talking about some arithmetic operations. So we follow the order of operations or PEMDAS. We're going to be learning how to perform some what we call assignments, like how to add up values to our variables. And then also we're going to be talking about math functions. Math functions, it's something that's going to make your coding experience easy, okay? By using the power, the square root, the absolute value, compare variables, which one is the highest, which one is the lowest. So they're very, very useful. Okay, you don't have to use them, but if you don't use them, then your statement will be way, way longer than if you use them. Especially like for example, power. If I have to multiply something like by itself, so there is a power 5, 6 times. So you can just multiply by itself 5, 6 times. Or what about if it's 20 times? So there is a possibility that you may make mistakes, that you may miss one, then it's not practical. So this math functions is to help you in this process, okay? So of course, like always, there are some videos very extremely useful. I put them there, I post them for a reason. It covers everything. So if make sure you go over them at least one time, because sometimes if you go over them one time, you may miss something. So it's always a good habit to go over them a couple of times. Okay. And definitely before you start working on the assignment, I usually put like explanation, what the assignments are about and how you approach them. Okay, so go ahead. We're going to go ahead and get started. So this is, let me open the PowerPoint. So as I said, it's not my habit to go over the slides. I find it boring, but we use it as a reference to see what elements, in case I miss something important, so we can always go back. So we already covered this part, CIN, okay, to prompt the user. And as you can see, you can prompt, you don't have to do it separately. You can prompt the user to enter, let's say 3, 4 values with the same statement. As you can see, you don't have to put CIN height and then go to the next line and put CIN width. So you can have 2, 3, 4, excuse me, and even if they have a different data type. So here it's the same thing, double, double, okay? What about if you have one of them is double, another one is integer, and the other one is string, another one is character? You can still use this, okay? So I'm gonna switch to Visual Studio. So as I mentioned, so let's start, for example, let's say we have value, okay? Let's say int is age, okay? Now remember that if I have different variables with the same data type, I can separate them with comma. You don't have to repeat int every time. Like let's say value here. Another one is grade, okay? So you can have all of them in one line, and then you can use the int only one time. So you can just put comma and then put value, comma, grade, and you are fine, okay? But make sure you put comma here, and the last one should be semicolon. So semicolon should be the last one in the statement. Now, if you put semicolon here, that would be wrong. So if you put this, why? Because when you put semicolon, basically you are ending the statement. So the second variable, you have to start a new statement. Basically, if you want to use semicolon, then I have to declare it again, because that's a separate statement. It has and then separate again. If you decide to do with this, that's fine. Okay. But if you want to use int only one time, then use the comma instead. Okay, not the semicolon, as you can see right here. Okay. And then I can use, for example, string. String is for what? What do we use the string for? What kind of data?
Names.
Names, anything that has a text, okay? could be name, it could be address. Let me ask you this. Let's say I have a zip code. Okay, zip code. What data type I should use? Zip code. Like 77490 or 470.
Would it
whatever.
be integer?
You guys agree? Okay. Int is fine, no problem. But is the zip code really a number? Can you add to zip code? Can you subtract zip code from another one? Can you multiply them?
No.
Yeah. So even though it looks like a number, but it's not really a number. So I would probably put it as a string because it does not act as a number. The same thing for a phone number. So a phone number, it says number, but is it really a number? Is it something that you can add? You might say, so if it's not something that you can involve in arithmetic operation, it's not really a number, integer, even if it says number, like in phone number, but there's dash, there's parentheses, and you cannot add, you cannot multiply, you cannot divide. So I would use string instead. Everybody get this? So because it does not act as a real number. Because if it is number, then it should be added, it should be subtracted, should be multiplied, should be part of an arithmetic operation, which is not the case. So string would be the best data type to use. But for the zip code, if you use integer, it's not a problem. It's just, there is no way you're going to use it in calculation. So I would just use string. Now for the string, I'm not sure if I got the chance to talk about this. No, I want you to pay attention here, okay? So let's say I have a name, okay? I'm going to ask somebody for a name. So I'm going to put cout, and I'm going to put, please enter your name, okay?
We
I'm
don't
gonna
see
put-
your screen. We just see the
Oh,
PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. So in this case, I am, oh, I don't know. So I think probably because, okay, I'm going to stop here. And then when I share, I'm going to use only the screen. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, when I use screen. Thank you so much, Nas, for that. Okay, so here I have a name, right? So cout, please enter your name, okay? String name, okay. Now, if, okay, let me put this one first, okay? So I'm gonna put it here. Now I'm gonna prompt the user cin, and then I'm gonna put name. That means put that in here, okay? And then I'm gonna put statement that the name is this. Okay, oh, your name is this, which is name, okay? So let's see, I'm gonna show you something here that you need to be aware of. So let me run the program and see. Let me know if you can see can you see like the output? Please enter your name.
Yes,
you
we
can
see it.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Look, at any point, because I try to basically make the screen, whatever I'm working on is the one that you should see. But in case that's not the case, let me know so I can make the correction on them, because sometimes I may assume that you are watching what I'm doing, but you are looking at another screen. So sometimes I may not pay attention. So please bring it to my attention. So enter your name. Let's say David, okay? If I hit the enter key, no problem, right? Oh, your name is David. Oh, so far, so good. Now, what happened if I put first name and last name? David Garcia, for example. What can happen? So you see only David, you don't see Garcia here because we are using CIN. And in terms of string, the first space the program will stop if you are using CIN. That means once you get to space, then the program will stop. It's not going to pick up the second one. So in this case, what are we supposed to do? Is don't use CIN, use getLine. CIN is getLine, and then put it like this. GetLine, see? GetLine, and then you put CIN here, and then you put comma, and then the variable, like this. Now, if you see this one underlined, that means you need to add another file called string. Yeah. So now let's try it and see. So get line will pick up the entire line, regardless, if it's first name or last names. If I put David, oh, sorry. So this one is fine, there's no problem. And then if I have a first name and last name, then it should pick up both of them. Okay, so just to make sure that, because I get this question very, very frequently that, it shows only the first name, or it also shows only part of the string, it doesn't show the other one. So if you have only one string, that means only one word. So using CIN is fine, but if you have like a sentence or something, make sure you use this one, get line, okay? And then another thing I want to tell you also is, what about if I have three things at the same time? I can do that. Let's say grade, and then your something that has cells, for example. So I'm going to put here, please enter all the three at the same time. Enter your name, grade, and cell, even though they have nothing to do with each other. This is an example. So I can do it separately with this CIN button, or I can just put all of them as one after the other. Name, okay? Assuming you're going to follow the same sequence, okay? Name, grade, and then cells, like this. Okay? To make sure we got the right thing, we're going to display them. Your name is name. I'm just going to copy this. Copy. We got L. So I'm going to copy this and then print the other three and see if they were picked up. So your grade is, and your cells is grade and cells. All right. So let me try and see. So I'm trying to do all of them in one line. That's totally fine, as long as they match, like the name match with whatever you typed first, and then grade for the second one, so on. So I'm going to run the program and see. So I'm going to put, now since I'm using CIN, I can use only one, like maybe only first name. So let's say Mark. And then how do you separate them? You have the choice. You can either use spacebar, and then I'm going to put the grade is 85, and then space, and then my cells, this is 26,500. For example, 0, because it's that. So if you enter key, can you see that? Your name is Mark, your grade is 85, so they were saved with no problem. Can I use the enter key? You can. So if I put Mark and I hit the enter key and I put 96 and then 25 to 60, it should be no problem. So whether you are using the space, as long as there is some kind of separation, so the program can tell them apart, which one is the name, where does it start, where does it end, and stuff like that. Now you have the choice. You can either use the space bar to enter the next one, or you can use the enter key. Everybody got this?
Yes.
Any questions before we move on to the next one? All right. So this is about the data type and stuff like that. Okay. So most of I think the programs that they give you, the programming assignments, most of them are about this, which means you display, you prompt the user by enter statements, and then you enter something, you prompt the user using CIN, and then you do some kind of calculation. Like one of them is about, I think, temperature conversion. So temperature conversion, just for people, before we move on to the next part. So you need, if you are not sure, am I going to use int or double? Use double, because double includes integer. Like for example, for the temperature, I'm just going to use double, okay? So I'm going to put Fahrenheit, F, and then Celsius, C. Even though it would be probably, it's better to No, F by itself does not give me anything. So probably try to be as accurate as possible. Make sure that your variables, they are meaningful, because in case there is a problem, it's easy to tell, okay? And then I'm going to put cells, for example. Okay, I declared my variable. Now I'm going to ask, okay? Okay, please enter the temperature in Fahrenheit. Okay, and then and down. And then you're going to use CIN. Okay, and then you're going to do the calculations. So you're going to put Celsius. Be careful about the spelling, because that's the most sick. Right here, it's case sensitive. So I'm going to put, even though normally the variable, it's not required, but it's good to make it lowercase. You don't have to, okay? But it's a good habit that the variables, the normal variables, they start with the lowercase. And then also, if you have more than one word, let's say grade average, it's a good habit to put like this, grade average. Can you see that? So starting from the second word, capitalize. It's just a habit. It's just like a, what do we call it? Like dress code, okay? But it's not enforced. It's good to do it, but it's not enforced. Okay, so don't start G. If it's a normal variable, so start with the lowercase. If you have more than one word, so starting from the second one, the first letter should be capitalized. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if you talked about this. There are some rules when it comes to defining your variable. There are 4 rules. So let me put this in here. There are rules when you define your variable, whatever variables we're using. There are 3 or 4 variables. The first one should be no space, no space. You cannot put grade space average, because you are creating confusion. Is these are 2 variables or 1? So don't use space. Number 2 is don't start with a number, like a digits. You cannot call your variables like, let's say 45 grade. You can't do that. It has to start with either a letter or underscore. Underscore is fine. As a matter of fact, underscore is the only special character allowed. It's not, question mark is not allowed. Exclamation mark is not allowed. Dot is not allowed. Dash, because dash, this is not allowed. Underscore is allowed. So I can put this. Normally, underscore, we put it in the middle. Like, for example, grade, like this. So you're going to see this very often. But this is underscore. It's not dash. This is not allowed. If I change it to dash, that's not allowed. That's illegal. Okay? Underscore is fine. So that's the first one. Don't start with the number. So number like this is not allowed. Okay? And then make sure that you don't use any. Okay, the only special characters allowed, just mentioned, that is underscore. Which is this guy right here. And finally, number 4, in case, because you may get one of the questions like this, I think in the quiz, it will give you like a bunch of names, and it will tell you which one is illegal, or the other way around. Maybe all of them are legal except one. Anyway, so as long as, look, you can choose any name whatsoever, as long as these 4 conditions are met. And the last one, don't use one of the keywords, the ++ keyword. Like, for example, double. You cannot name your variable double. You cannot name your variable namespace. You cannot string. You cannot call it iString. And then the other we're going to learn later, CIN, cout. They have a special meaning, so it's going to create confusion. So don't use. So this is the rules. Any variable, as long as you are meeting this requirement, it's valid. But it makes sense. It's a good habit to choose a name that is meaningful. Okay, now let's move on to the next part. When we have a variable, okay, let me finish this. So we have Celsius. I'm not sure if I still remember. So minus 32, right? 32, and then times 5/9, all right? So this is the value. Is this the correct formula? Just want to make sure I think probably it is. Is it 5/9 or 9/5? I think probably 5. Now here we have to be very careful. If the Celsius, okay, be careful. If Fahrenheit is an integer, what can happen? So Fahrenheit minus 32, since it is an integer, so minus 32, which is an integer, so we're going to get an integer. So this is an integer, right? And then when you multiply by 5, you're going to get an integer. And then when you divide by 9, what did we say when you divide an integer by integer? You get an integer, right? So it may cause unexpected problem. But if I change it to double, I'm not going to have that problem because this is double. When you multiply by integer, it becomes double. So when you divide by 9, you're going to get the decimal. So my point here, if it is an integer, you're going to lose, or the decimal will be excluded, basically. You're not, like if it is 0.2, you're not going to see 0.2. You're going to see only the integer part of it. Okay? So be careful about this, okay? That's why when I put this one double, I don't have to worry about it. But if you decide to use integer, the least you can do is first one. So here you have a problem. So I would say probably Celsius at least make it double, because you're gonna have to multiply by 5.0. And since it is 5.0, the entire thing will be double. So you cannot save it in an integer. So the bottom line is, if it's double, you don't have to worry about all of this. Okay? So this one is fine. But if you want to round it, you can. And we're going to learn about how to round in the next section of the lecture. Okay? So we're going to be learning how to round it, how to perform certain functions. Okay? And then you print, say out. Say out, okay, the temperature in Celsius is, and then you put Celsius. Okay, so let me run the program and see if you have any problem. So let's say Fahrenheit 95. So that's 35. Okay. Now what about this? If we have 102. See, there's a decimal here. What about if I don't want, I want to ignore the decimal? So you have two choices. Either you round it or you ignore it. So if you want to ignore it, you can just put int. That means, okay, I'm not interested in the decimal, just get me the. So here it's called casting. Casting means give me only the integer part of the number and just ignore the decimal. You can do that. But probably round it is more accurate, because you want to make sure that you are closer to the actual number. So we'll learn about rounding in the next section, okay? But for now, this is how you cast it, how you get only the integer part of the number and you ignore the decimal. So that's different than rounding, because rounding is going to either round it up or down based on the decimal number. If it's 5 or up, it will round it up. Otherwise, it's going to keep it the same, okay? All right, now let's move on to the next part, which is the assignments, how we do. So for example, it's saying I have a variable x is 10. Okay, so there is something that we use frequently, which is like this: x plus equal to. What does this one mean? So this,
You're adding 2 to the 10.
yes. Now, but there is more to it. You add 2 to 10 and then you save it again in x, which means now x is not 10 anymore, because people forget and they use the original value. So once you add 2, so basically what you are doing is this. I'm going to put it in a different as a comment, because these are the same. Sometimes you may see this. So these two are the same. That means the old value x, which is this guy, this is 10, plus 2 is 12. Now put it in again inside the box. Remember I told you the best analogy for variable A variable is nothing but a box. So it was 10, and then I added 2. Maybe like I had 10, let's say 10 apple. And then I add 2 more. No, I don't have 10 anymore in my box. I have 12. So that's basically what. Basically, you are updating. So you call it as updating the value in that box. So these two are the same. X plus equal 2. And be careful, don't start with the equal sign, start with the plus. So these two are exactly the same. Most of the time, we're going to be doing this because it's like shortcut, it's easier. But they mean the old value, you add 2, and then you save it again as 12. So from now on, X is not 10 anymore, it's. Or also now, you put, so this is, let me put it right here to show you that it is the same thing, okay? So this is a different way of doing it, okay? Now for +1, there is an exception, we put plus plus. So plus plus, the same thing as this, plus equal 1, or x equals x plus 1. All these three I mean the same thing, which is adding 1 to the variable x. So we already have 12. So now we added another one. So if we print x, so the value of x now is 13, right? Because I added 2 and then I added 1 more. So now I added 3. So that's it will be 13. So make sure you know what it means, okay? So if you see any of these, so as you can see, it says right here 13. Okay, and the same thing for minus. So if I use another variable y, for example, it is 8. So let's say minus y minus equal 3. Minus equal 3. That means now the variable, so now the value of y is 5, right? Just be careful. And then what about if I put minus minus? Okay, so now the value of y now is 4 because I just subtracted my 1. Okay, so if I print, it will, what about if I use another one? 1 equals y minus 1. We said it's the same thing, right? That's what subtracting another one. So now the value now for y is 3 because I subtracted 3, subtracted 1, and another one. So 3, 1, so that's 5. So that would be 2, okay? So I'm just showing you the different ways we perform assignments. So now if I put the value of y is 1. So if you run the program, you're going to see that it's going to say 3, okay? Any questions about this? The same thing for the y, for the, I'm sorry, for multiplication, it's the same thing. So if I have variable a, that is 2, or let's say 3. So if I put a multiply equal 3 or 4, let's say 4. So what is that supposed to mean? What is the value of a right now after performing this operation?
12.
Very good. The value of a. So it's like a box, and then you remove the old value, and then you put the new one. The common mistake is people, when they use like an operation, they use the original value. No, use the last, the most updated value. So the value of a is now 12. Okay, or you can do it this way. So there is a different way. So what about if I put now this? So it's 12 now. And now what happened? What's the value now? The value of a is now what?
24.
24. So it's very simple. Just make sure you keep the updated value. That's what I'm saying. But it's not complicated. So if I put C out, the value of a is, and then you put a. So it's very simple. Okay, the same thing for division. So let me get B. So if B is, let's say, 32. If I put B, look, divide. Don't use backslash, okay? Forward slash for division. And you put equal, same thing, okay? So if I put this here, what does it mean? What is the value of B? Is now, you divide by 2. 32 divided by 2 is
16.
16, very simple. Or you can use it different way. Look, B equals B. So both of them have the same thing. So these two are the same thing. So I divided again by 2. So the value of B is now 8 because you divided by 2 twice. And then you print the value of is B, and then you start a new one. So if I run the program, look at the values. So X is 13, the value of Y is 3, the value of A is 24, and the value of B is 8. So 32 divided by 2, 16, 16 divided by 2. Okay. And finally, remember the percentage. Okay. So if I put C is, let's say, 13. So what is that supposed to mean if I put the percentage? Remember, percentage has nothing to do with the percentage. It's about the remainder, the modulus. So if I put this 3, what is that supposed to mean? What is the value of C? When you divide by 3, what's the leftover? What's the remainder?
One.
1, because 13 divided by 3 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. The leftover is 1 because 12 is 1 point away from 13. So it's 1. That's it. Okay? So, and the same thing, as I said, you can do it like this, just like the others. So you can do it separate. Okay? And then you put C equals first. So these two are just the same. Okay? Any questions about this? So we're going to be using this very, very frequently. I just want to make sure that you know what it means. I just want to mention one thing and then I'm going to move on. There is a difference. I'm going to give you a difference value. D equals 7. If I put this, what does it mean? Plus plus D. Okay. If I put, so what do you think I'm going to print? If I print, what is the value of D? What am I going to see if I run the program?
There's no quotations.
Quotation? No, that's okay because it's a variable. I don't need quotation. Well, it's like I would have put this. Okay, the value. Okay, or the output. So what do you think I'm going to get if I print? This is just on the side. Okay, you may not see it, but it's possible. Can you see? Like I didn't use plus, but there's a difference between plus plus D and D plus plus. Okay, what's the difference? The difference, if I run the program, this is called pre-increment, pre. That means I'm going to, because there are two operations here. You are printing and you are adding. Now the computer is not going to do this at the same time. It's impossible. There's always a sequence. So the question for the program, am I going to add 1, then print the value, or print, then add 1? So if you put plus plus first, you are adding 1 first, then print, which means I'm going to print 8. Look, you're going to see 8 in there. Okay. Now let me keep the same thing, but this plus plus, I'm going to move it to the front. This is called post increment, which means the program will print and then add 1 for later. Okay. So if I run the program, you're going to see only 7. But the next time you're going to use 8, you're going to use D, it will be 8 next time, because it added 1 after finishing the printing. For example, here, if I put C out D, you're gonna see 8. That means it added 1. But after, can you see this? 8. This is just in case. Now, if you have it by itself, then it means the same thing. You are adding 1. It doesn't really matter whether you put plus plus D or D plus plus if it's by itself. But if it is combined with another operation, which is in this case printing, then it does make a difference because we have two things in one statement. So the program has to make a decision which of the two tasks will be performed first. So if you put plus plus in the front, like first, then it will add 1, then print. So the printing will reflect the incrementation. But if you put plus plus at the end, it will add 1, but after, later on. That means the printing does not reflect the adding 1. This is just on the side in case you may not see this, but if you are asked this question in the quizzes, you know, at least you have a background. Okay, so this is the questions about performing this this arithmetic operation. We're going to be using this one. You don't memorize them because you're going to be practicing them. You're going to be doing this on a regular basis, so you're going to get used to it no matter what. Okay, I just want to make sure that you understand what they mean, but you're going to be using them frequently. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is the math functions. Why do we need the math functions? We need the math function to make our kind of arithmetic operation much easier. And I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, I want to do some operation. Let's say maybe, calculate the area of a circle. Okay. So let's say we have a radius, for example, radius. Okay. And then I'm going to calculate the area. Not only that, and maybe also the perimeter or circumference. So I'm going to ask the user, okay, enter the radius. Okay. So the program will save this information. So radius, okay. Now, what is the formula for the area? For the circle. Anybody remember? The area of the circle, what's the formula?
Is it pi r squared?
Yes, that's it. Pi r squared. So what do we do? So we're going to put r squared, which means this radius squared. So you can either do this times itself, that's an option, because you have only 2, so it's not a problem. But if the power has a big number, then it's not going to work. So you can either do this, or you can use the math function. You're going to say pow. Pow stands for power, and you put the radius, comma 2. That means square. But for this to work, sorry, here I have to put 2. So this means square. That means the radius power. It's like this is the base, and this is the exponent. So this is the same thing as radius square. Okay, but for this to work, you need to add another file. It's called CMath. Anything that has the calculation, this is the file that you need to add on top. Okay, so now if I print out, say the area is, so I'm going to run it. You're going to see, oh, I forgot to multiply by what? By pi. I'll show you how to use pi, but for here, I'm just going to use 3.14, just makes approximation. So pi r squared. So now if I run the program, that's going to ask me for the radius, let's say 10, and then the area is 314. 314, because I use, like a perfect number, 10. So square is 100. So when you multiply 3.14, it's going to be 340. But if I use different number, maybe 6, then I'm going to have a different 113.5. Okay? So now I'm going to be mentioning or talking or discussing there are a bunch of them. I'm just going to mention the most frequently math function that we use frequently. So the first one is power, okay? So if I want, for example, to put x cubed, how can I do that? So if I want, let's say x is 5. So how can I calculate x cubed? So you have to raise it to the third power. So if you want to use the math function, you're going to put pow, stands for power. You put the base first, which is x, or whatever variable you are using, and you put comma. And then you put the exponent next to it, which is 3. So this is x cubed, okay? So it's going to be 5 cubed, so that's 5 times 5, 25 times 5. So whatever the answer might be, that's how we use the power. So it's at 125. I just did not stop line. So it should be and okay. So this is the power 125. Okay. So that would be a very easy way to use that power in anything. And then we have the square root. What about if I have, let's say, 81, that's, B, whatever, B is 81. I want the square root of this. How can I do that? So we use SQRT. Also, it's part of the CMath also. So this CMath that we have here include all these functions. Many of them, we're not going to use all of them, but I'm just mentioning the most frequent. So since the square root accepts only one number, not 2, so I'm just going to put B here. So this will give me the square root, which is 9. Okay? Square root is 9, as you can see, right? Okay? Also, one absolute value. So if I have, for example, let's say double y is negative 3.45. So sometimes you want only the positive number, the positive side. You want to ignore the decimal, the sign, then you can use the absolute value. So if it was ABS stands for absolute value, for whatever reason, because you want not. Let's say, for example, I have a bunch of temperature, and I want to know what is the highest change in temperature, regardless whether it's increase or decrease. Then in this case, absolute value would be a good idea because you are not interested in the sign. It doesn't really matter if it's decrease or increase. I just want to know the change from one day to the other. So maybe between Wednesday and Thursday, the change was 25. Regardless whether it's increased or decreased, I'm just focusing on the number of points. So absolute value would be a good idea. Why? We may have an example about that later on. Okay? So that's the absolute value. Also, another one is floor. So if I have a variable double, let's say P equals 5.78. So what is floor? You know what floor means, right? The bottom. So
It rounds down.
Yes, that's probably the best definition. That means you are not rounded. Okay, there's a difference between, we're going to talk about round later. It's always rounded down, period. So 5.78, when you put floor, it's going to give you 5. It doesn't matter. It doesn't look at this number like for a round, and then if it's 5, it doesn't really matter. It's always rounded down. So we use floor. Floor P will give me the closest one that is smaller, the closest integer that is smaller than the number. Okay, so that's why there's another one called CL. So it's the opposite, which is it's going to give me the highest. It's going to round it up. So floor will always round it down, and CL. No, we don't use them a lot, but it's good to know in case you get questions like this. Okay. So this is CL. Okay. So that's 5. The other one is 6. So CL is, oh, I don't, okay. So it's CL is, I mean, CL like a ceiling. So it's always the top floor. So you just have to remember the meaning, because floor is always, so this one you always round it down. Here you always what? Always round it up. What about if I want to round it properly like in math? Then you're going to use what? Round. That's the one that you use in math. That's going to give me, it depends. If it's 0.5 and up, it will round it up. Otherwise, so in this case, it's 5.7. It will be 6. Okay? So if I put round, it's going to give me 6 because, so this is the real rounding. Okay? So it's 6 because, but if I change it, if I change that 0.7 to 0.2, then it's going to round it down because that's how we round the number in math. Okay, so it's going to be 5. Can you see that? So this is the real. So floor is always rounded down. Still, always rounded up. And then round is always the correct rounding, like the math round. I call it here. That's the math that you know. Math round. Okay. So now be careful. What about if I put minus? Be careful if I use minus. So what do you think I'm going to get if I put floor T? Remember, floor is always the lowest. So what's the answer? What do you think I'm going to get?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that?
What I'm saying is, if I change it to a negative number, minus, do you think, what is the floor of T? And what is the seal of T? To help you with that, always you have the number here, right? I'm going to do it like in math fashion. So for example, if I have 3.45, it's between what? Between 3 and 4, right? So you have 3 here. That's what you do in math, like in inequalities and stuff like that. So always the one on the left side is 3, and the one on the right side is the seal. So this is seal, and this one is floor. Now, what about if you have a negative number? So if I have negative, then the small one will be negative
The
4.
floor will be -6.
Negative 4 is the small, because negative 4 is smaller than negative.
Oh, you're talking. I was talking about the T. Sorry.
Ah, and then this one will be negative 3. Okay, so just be careful when it comes to negative. Anyway, whatever the left side, that's floor. Whatever is on the right side, if you put it this way, like in a math fashion or notation, then always the left one is the floor. Just in case you get negative, just be careful. All right. Other thing that also that we use frequently in math function is max and min to compare. So for example, if I have a bunch of variables, let's say num1 is 15 and num2 is 9. So I want to compare which one is the highest. So I can use max. I'm going to put here the highest number is, and I'm going to put max. And then it takes 2 numbers, 2 values, num1, num2. So the program will compare the 2 and print the highest, whatever the highest is, which is in this case 15. So if I run the program, I don't want to put this. I'm just going to put, because it keeps asking for this. So I'm just going to or random numbers. I don't have definitely. No, because we're focusing on this. Or what you can do, maybe leave everything and just put it as a comment, right? So maybe I'm going to choose. So we don't have to worry about this part, and then we focus only on the part that concerns us. Now that's a good idea if you have, you know, you don't want you don't want to worry about this part. So just make it a comment, so you don't have to delete that because you may need it later. Oh, okay. So if I run the program, so it's going to tell me the highest number, and the highest number is 15, right? Now, what about if I have three numbers? How can I do that? Because this max works only for two. So if I have num3 equals whatever, 28. So I want the highest number. So how can I do that? How can I use max if I have three numbers, num1, num2, num3?
You do it first between two numbers, and then when you find the max between the
Very
two, you do it
good.
with the
Because
other one.
thank you so much. That's exact. Because if I try to put this, the program is going to say, no, we don't do that. Because this one works only with two numbers. So what you can do is get a variable first. I'm going to put it high1 or max1. Compare any two, doesn't really matter which one. Maybe num1 and num2, okay? And then whatever the highest, which is 15, it will be saved where? In high1. So I know it's saved in there. And then after that, you're going to put highest. Now compare what? Compare high1, which holds the highest of the first two, and then the third one that you did not get involved. Okay? So this will give me the highest. Okay? Then I just have to declare or print highest. Okay? So if you run it, it's going to be 28, which is the highest. Okay? Now somebody may say, well, because that's not big deal because we can see the numbers, which one are bigger, but what about if we don't have them? So let's say, for example, we have the variable, we're going to prompt the user to enter this. Okay? So we have no idea what the numbers are. So I'm going to put here, let's say, enter three numbers. So we don't know what they are because the user will enter this. So I'm going to put CIN and I'm going to put num1. Remember what we said that we can ask for the three at the same time. Num3. So now I have no idea what the numbers are. And then the program should be able to figure it out. So I was going to ask, okay, enter the three numbers. So let's say 14, 38, and 9. See? The highest number is 38. See? So regardless what the numbers are, the program should. What about if we have 4? Enter 4 numbers. So what we're going to do? Any idea?
You find the max between two, and then you find the max with the other two, and then you do the max between both sets.
Very good. See, I told you, programming is not difficult, just common sense. Common sense, it's not. I don't believe in anybody who's saying that, oh, this is not for me. It's for everybody. And just, are you willing to make that commitment to spend time and then learn and practice? For everybody, no exception. So it's not, programming is not for me. I try. No, you never try. Okay. So it's just common sense, basic math. You don't even require higher level of math. I think if you're like in high school, even the AP class, it requires only algebra 1, which is the basic. Because if it was difficult, challenging, requires critical thinking, they would probably ask for calculus or pre-cal or something, or algebra 2 minimum. They don't, because it doesn't take them that much, background. All right, so what we can do, we're going to compare the first two, and then you're going to compare the third one with the fourth one, and then you compare the two variables. So you're going to put first one, num1 and num2, you're going to save them in high1. And then for this one, you're going to put high2, num3 and num4. And then finally, you're going to add the highest of all the four by comparing what? The high one that holds the highest of the first two, and the high two, which holds the highest of the last two. Does this make sense? Anything complicated about this? And whatever works with max, you can use it with min, because min gives you the lowest. So I can just copy this. Well, yeah, I'm going to copy this. So let's say I'm interested in the lowest as well. So I'm going to go like this, and then change this one to low one. Low one, and then I'm going to use min, minimum. And then I'm going to put low two. And then of course, it's min. And finally, the lowest. So whatever we use with max should be working, should be applicable to min. And then I will display the lowest of all the four. See, it's not complicated at all. So the lowest number is lowest. And then you run the program, you should be able to find the answer. So enter the four numbers, so 15, 27, 34, 19, stuff like that. So the highest is, oh, it looks like there is a problem here. The lowest number is 27. I know that I did something wrong because it's supposed to be 15. So let's find out what the problem is. Is there any, what's the problem here? Who can tell me where is the problem? That's part of the
For n to lowest, you put min, high one, high two.
very good. See, I forgot. I'm supposed to put low one, low two. I put this two from the first one. See? So this is called a logical error because you have three types of errors. There is a syntax error. Syntax error, for example, I forgot this semicolon. It's called syntax error. Or maybe I misspelled something. Let's say see out, I put that, for example. I forgot. That's syntax error because the program should be able to figure it out easily. And there is the runtime error, which means something after. There is no error like in the beginning, like as a code, but when you run the program, maybe you divide it by zero. We cannot divide by zero, right? But that's something the program will figure it out, will find out when you run the program. This is called the runtime error. That means you're not going to find out until you run the program. And there is this type of error that we just had. It's called the logical error because it's not, you got an answer, it's not the right one because I forgot this is logical. There's no way for the program to know that you are supposed to put low one, low two, because it's, grammatically, if I want to say grammatical. So syntactically, it's fine. The program does not see any problem. Even when you run the program, there's nothing that's going to stop the program from running, but you are using the wrong choice. It's like when you have a formula, instead of plus, you put minus. Well, the program cannot help you with this, right? Because it's a logical thing. And this is the toughest errors to fix. Okay? This is the, so put low one, low, oh, sorry, I put it in the wrong place. Fine. It's right here. Low two, low one. Okay. So this is about max and minimum. Okay. What else? So we did this. We talked about round. We talked about absolute value. Probably we mentioned most of them. Let me finish with one example, okay? To show you how we can use these math functions. But this is the most frequently ones. I don't think I forgot anything important. Anyway, so if I forget anything, it should be like in the department. But this is the main ones that we use frequently, okay? So I'm going to use an example. I'm going to end with this. Let's say, I'm not sure if you're good in geometry, but I'm going to create a program. Let me explain this. So I'm going to create a program that prompts the user to enter 2 points or coordinates of 2 points. Now, when you have 2 points, you can calculate the distance, right? Using the distance formula, you can calculate the slope, and then you can check, for example, if it is horizontal, or but at least no. Let's calculate the distance first. So 2 points. So of course, for the points, you need x1 and y1, right? So we need a variable. We can call it x1, y1, x2, y2, right? So you need to ask or prompt the user to enter this information. So we're going to put enter x1 and well, let me just use it in one line, okay? x1, y1, x2, y2. But of course, you can do it separately. I just don't want to waste time because we just learned, right, that you can prompt the user to enter all of them at once. And then we're going to put CIN, and then just make sure you enter them in the correct order, because if you don't enter them in the correct order, you may get a different answer. So for example, here we're going to put x1, y1, x2, and y2. Okay? And then, okay, now I want to calculate the distance. So what is the distance formula here? Anybody remember the distance formula? The distance between 2 points.
Are you talking about slope?
No, I'm talking about here about distance. Like, let's say I want to calculate the distance between 2 points. What is the formula we use? It starts with the square root.
Oh, is it square root of x2 minus x1 squared
Square plus.
plus y2 minus y1 squared?
All right, very good. Now, the challenging part is, how can I convert what you just said in a C++ code? We talked about the square root, right? So I'm going to put what? SQRT. So everything will be inside this parentheses, right? And then inside, what do we have? x2 minus x1 square, which means I need to use power, right? And put x2 minus x1, and you put comma, right? You put comma for the square, right? We did this. So this is x2 minus x1 square. And then you put plus, and then you do the same thing for the y. So power y2 minus y1, and then you put what? Comma 2 or square, and then you close. Okay, let's be careful. Okay, power, and then need to close the square roots, because the whole thing should be the square roots. Everybody got this? So I'm just basically transforming or maybe converting a mathematical formula into a code based on what we learned. Okay, everybody get this? Does this make sense to you? Square root of x2 minus x1 squared, that's what power is, and then plus y2 minus 1 squared, that's what the power is. And now I'm going to print and put the distance between the 2 points is distance. So let's check. So I'm going to enter, let's say 5 space 3, a random numbers, and then 1, 8. So here we have the points 5, 3, and 1, 8. So what's the distance? Oh, 6.40. Well, that makes sense. Okay. Now I'm going to add with this because I want to make sure that you get it, which is sometimes you want to format your text so it looks like a table. So we're going to be using something called IOMAMI. We use this for formatting our text. You know, sometimes you want to print, but you want the printing to be in an organized fashion. You want, like, for example, the first column to be aligned. We have all the teachers, for example, their room numbers in one column, and then the students' names. So you want it to be in an organized fashion. So to do that, we use this. It's called IUManage. So this is for formats. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example here. Let's say I have, for example, students and their grade. Okay. So I need the names definitely. So let's say we have name 1, name 2, and name 3. Okay. And then I need a grade 1 for each one of them, grade 2, and grade 3. And then I'm going to ask the user, for now, we're just going to put like a random, okay? Because we are focusing on how we put them in, how we align them. So let's say the first name is David, okay? And then the second name is Maria. And number 3 is Kate, okay? And then we have the grade. Let's say the first one is 68.25, for example. And then here we have 92.58. And then grade 3 is 65.37. Okay, so we have 3 names. Now I want to put them in such a way that the names are in one column and the grade, and I want them to be aligned, just like a table. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put out, and I'm going to use, okay, first one, I want the decimal. Let me start with the, yeah. So I want the decimal to be, let's say sometimes, like if you have more than 2 decimals, and I want to limit it only to 2 decimals. So let's say I have 1 here. And then here maybe 7. But I want to limit everything to 2. Okay? So I'm going to put here, I'm going to put set W. That means what sub does? Sub W means set the width. It's like a table. You have a specific width. So I want the name to be, let's say, 15 spaces. Only for the name, nothing else. So there will be no overlap. And then I'm going to put name 1, whatever the name 1 is. And then I'm going to put set W, another 15 for the grade. So that means 15 spaces for the names, and then another 15. It doesn't really matter how long or short the name is or number. This is like a table. The first column is only for the names. So there will be no overlap. It's like in the table, there's a line between them. So this is the same thing. So here I'm going to put here the name, grade 1. And then I'm going to put this. So if I run the program, look what I'm going to have. Can you see? David here, 15. The only problem, I wanted to start from the left. Okay. So how can we do that? I'm going to tell the program, okay, listen, I want you to start from the left. So if I put this, then David will start. Can you see that? From the left. So this one is 15, and then this one is 15. Now I want, okay, let me copy this and see if I do it 3 times for each of the 3 students. Then you're going to see that it will be aligned, but I still have to make some changes. So we have name 2 here and name 3 here. And then grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. If I run the program, you see that it is exactly aligned. See, they look like a table, but there is a problem. Now for the names, there is no issue because they start from the left. Now for this number, I want 2 things. I want them to be aligned, and also I want to limit to only 2 decimals. So to be able to do that, I'm going to go here, and then first one, I'm going to call it fix. What does fix? There are 2 ways you can put the numbers, either in scientific notation or in normal numbers. I put fixed, that means normal number. And then I'm going to put set precision, that means how many decimal, I'm going to put only 2. Okay? So set precision means only 2. If you want 3 decimal, you put 3. If you want only 1, put 1. If you don't want anything, put 0. So fix again for normal numbers, because there are different ways you can write the number. Like you can change it to scientific notation. We don't want the scientific, so we put fixed. So now let's run the program. You're going to see that I have only 2 decimals. See, they're aligned. It doesn't really matter. What about if I have only 1? What's going to happen? If I have only, let's say, only 2 here. So since I put 2, then the program will finish with 0 because you asked for 2 since there is no digit. So the program will just put 0 in there. Okay? And then maybe I can put the title on top. So I'm going to copy this because I want the same thing, but I want it to be a title. So I'm going to put here students. And then here I'm going to put the grade. Okay? So let's see how it's going to look. Good. And maybe I'm going to underline it. So I'm going to add another one. We'll just put the dashes. So I'm going to put the dashes here. Okay. Underline. And the same thing. So this is how we organize or format our text. So if you run the program, you can do this. So again, what does set W? What do we use set W for? We use it for specifying how much space, what's the width. W stands for width. That means just like a table, how wide do you want it? Okay, I want maximum 15. So that 15 space is only for the student names. So there's no way for the grades to overlap with the students because I specified how much space in there. If it's not enough, increase the number. Okay, and this one is another 15 for the grade. So there's no overlap. Okay, if you want to write a line for whatever reason, just use right. Okay, we use left because we want to start from the left. But if you want to, for whatever reason, you want to right align it, you can put right in that. Okay, so that should be it for today. I think maybe we'll stop here. I think I covered everything. Even though, I mean, if I miss anything, I will make sure that next time we meet, I will start with that. Okay. So any questions about what we covered so far? Any questions? Anything that does not make sense? Okay. Well, thank you so much for people who attended. I really appreciate your time. As always, if you see any, if you have any problem or maybe after watching the video that I'm going to post shortly, if you see something that does not make sense, please don't hesitate to reach out. But thank you so much, and then have a nice evening.